You never know. You never know where life's going to take you. Awesome. Okay, well, just a second and it'll stream over and I'll hit the go live button and we will talk about Lily. All right. Hey, Amazon, welcome back. Today we have Kristan Higgins on the show. So excited to have her on to talk about her newest book. When I tell you I snort laughed, cried laughing at places in this book, I even would call another friend. I'd be like, hey, get this book so we can talk about it. And then I live on TikTok. That's like my escape right now because I can't really read as much because I'm writing. So I'm like, TikTok's my escape. And so every time somebody says, what are you reading right now? I'd put this book and people would write The Iron in all caps. And I would be like, right. So we're not going to do a spoiler because I know that you guys are buying this and I don't want to spoil it for you. But welcome, Kristan. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your hilarious books.
Oh, thank you. Well, I am a mom and a wife and a grandmother recently, so exciting. And um, and I've been writing for, I guess, 20 years, and this is my 22nd book.
Aww.
And Out of the Clear Blue Sky is the story of Lily Silva, who finds herself abruptly divorced right as her only child, her son, is going to college 2,000 miles away. And her husband tells her he's in love with someone else, he's had an affair. Now he understands what love is and he has to find his joy and he deserves to be happy. And she's stunned and she's heartbroken, but she's also furious. And that is what I loved writing about this book, that Lily, who is like the salt of the earth person, she's a midwife and she's, the heart of her family, always inviting people over for dinner, and she's the fifth generation Cape Codder. Her dad's a fisherman. She just kind of goes off the rails, and she has a wonderful time doing it.
Um, so I don't think this is a spoiler because it's how it starts off. So it starts off with the skunk, and then the
Yeah.
skunk unfolds. And at first I was like, is this lady like stable? Because I'm here for all of this.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I loved writing was that she is angry
Yeah.
and she doesn't take this lying down, so she feels like, when they go low, I'm gonna go lower. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean,
I
there was a
have
time
news for
where I thought, okay, Kristan, if you make her like backpedal, I swear to God, I can't handle this. And nope, nope, nope.
you.
She was the queen through the whole book. And like you
Yeah,
said, salt to the earth, the one that you would wish would be your friend, the one you
right.
wish would be in your corner. And I so loved the niece so much. And what
Oh,
was crazy was I love the antagonist.
right.
I mean, as you started writing her, I'm like, okay, but I like her.
Right. So the book is split between points of view between Lily,
Yeah.
the wrong wife, and Melissa, the new wife, the younger, hotter, beautiful, wealthy woman who kind of looks around town and decides that Lily's husband will do quite nicely.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to see, how do you get so morally bankrupt?
Yeah.
What kind of background would you have to be able to do what Melissa has done? And, she is shallow and she's materialistic, and she's also really good at what she does, which is pretending. She pretends to be a medical student and therefore gets her first husband, and she pretends to be like completely into him, and so she becomes a trophy wife, and then he dies and she has all his money. And then she's just really, her goal in life is to be an influencer. But what kind of humanizes her is her niece, Ophelia, this now 12-year-old girl who's been living with her for 5 years. And Melissa grew up, self described hillbilly in Appalachia. And she thinks the only thing she had going for her is her looks. And so she was going to leverage that into a better life. And her niece is the daughter of her sister. And Melissa really loves her sister, but her sister has just gone down a path where there's like no return, drug addiction and stuff. So she gets Ophelia. And at first, she kind of uses Ophelia as a prop, like to boost her Instagram followers, you know? But it was really fun to write somebody and also, you know, because I'm an optimist, to redeem her somewhat. Somewhat. I still want her to be shallow and, you know,
She was who she was.
she exactly,
But
exactly.
what a skill to be able to, you guys, first of all, to be able to take the antagonist and write dual point of view with antagonist and protagonist and make you somehow love the antagonist at the end is a skill on another level that Kristan brings to the table with this one. But
Thank you.
the revenge was what I was here for. And just when I didn't think she could get any more worse, she did. And I mean, I'm like, and all the help along the way was the best part. How,
Yeah.
the cleaning lady's like, I've been cheated on. Here's the code to her house.
Right, right. And her sister plans their wedding, wedding of, you know, the ex-husband and the trophy wife, and she gives her insider information about like when they'll be with the florist and when they'll be tasting cakes. And so yeah, Lily has pretty much the support of the entire town because she's earned it. She's a wonderful person. And I think a lot of people really enjoy her going rogue. I certainly loved writing those scenes. And I think too, like we don't get to see an angry, relatable, likable heroine too often. And so writing a woman who is angry and she's going to do something about it, however petty it might be, it's also really satisfying.
Yes.
Um, I really liked putting that out there that, you know, beware the woman scorned, right? Um, and she does it. She never quite breaks the law.
I mean, I love my favorite part too is when she's hiding under the bed, and at that point, I'm like, she's nuts. She's nuts. And then when she makes friends with, I'm like, oh my gosh,
I know. I there were just so many
yeah,
opportunities there. And one of the things that's fun, I've been married for 31 years now. So I'm happily not divorced, but the statistics hold true in my world. 50% of the married couples we know have been divorced, and a few of them the same way Lily ended up divorced. The husband announces he's no longer happy. The wife thought, wait, are you talking to me? You know, I didn't know we weren't happy. I thought we were happy. And I wanted to write this book for them and for every woman who's felt in that circumstance. And you know, you always hope that you'll go through an upsetting event in your life and come out better for it. That's always the theme of my books is, you know, you can do this. It's going to be hard, but you've got it. And there's a lot of friendship and laughter and romance along the way. So I tapped into my friends' experiences in some of the revenge. I also asked on Facebook. I said, "Do you ever do anything to your ex?" And feel free to DM me if you don't want to put it out there. And I got so many wonderful answers. I mean, some were way too hostile and illegal, but some were delightful. And it was fun to be able to give voice to that, to those women and let their stories be told.
oh, her husband was such a tool. Such a tool. But
I
I think
know.
what I liked the most too was you touched on the part where when you divorce someone, you not only divorce them, but you divorce their family too.
Yeah.
That is such a loss too,
Right.
especially when you were not the one who wanted it. And
Mhm.
then you think, oh, well, they're my family. And then they just abruptly stop. And I
Mhm.
always tell people that because I have been divorced, is that,
Mhm.
and I'm happily remarried now. We've been together now 17 years. But my first marriage, I did love my in laws. And
Mhm.
they did to me what Lily's in laws did to her, where all of
Yeah.
a sudden they're just done. And you're like, but what did I do? And now, I think it's funny. A few years ago, one of my in-laws followed or accidentally, when somebody accidentally they're creeping and they like your picture and then they actually like unlike it. I'm like, I see you. I see you.
I guess some part of them is happy for you and proud of you, but it is hard when,
Yeah,
if your ex says like, "It's her or me,"
yeah.
um,
And I
and they
try to
say, "I
remember
don't
that.
wanna take sides," but of course you kinda have to take sides.
Yeah,
You can't really be neutral about a friend's anguish, right?
yeah,
You can't say, "Well, I'm sure he had his reasons, and he's devastated their little family. He gave her no warning, no opportunities to make it better, and, uh, and then she loses her wonderful in-laws,
yeah.
her previously wonderful in-laws."
But at the end, the redemption, how she handles it, is so cathartic. I'm like, oh man, Kristan, you nailed that one. I love it.
Thank
I'm
you.
telling you, this is one of my top favorites of 2022. This is a
Oh,
must
good.
read. I know it's marketed as a beach read. Just no, no. It's an October, November, December read. It's a perfect book to escape everything right now. Just I laughed so hard reading this, and I know you guys are gonna love it. So you guys can grab it. It's linked down below. Also follow Kristan here on Amazon so that you don't miss out on any of her upcoming releases.
Yeah, yes, please. Thank you.
So, where did your love of reading and writing begin?
Oh gosh, I actually remember the first time I could read. My mom was reading me Yertle the Turtle by Dr. Seuss, and I said, "You don't have to read the next page. I already know what's going to happen." So I kind of learned to read by osmosis,
Yeah.
and I mean, books have been my friends all my life, and I can mark periods of time, when my kids were little, the books that I read, when I was in the hospital, the books that, kept me company, vacations, it's just like I see the whole path of my life is paved with books. I can't imagine not being a reader. And so becoming a writer was not something that I had planned, but it's worked out really well. It was a lot of publishing is sort of the right book at the right time, and I had that when I debuted my first book. And what a wonderful unexpected career this has been. 22 books, and I think I've been published for like 17 or 18 years. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. What is the
And
one
it's
thing that you were surprised by in this whole writing career?
I think I was, surprised by I first of all, my success, because my first couple of books were quietly published, and then, they picked up momentum, and I had book tours, and I had, marketing teams and publicity, and, had input on my covers and stuff like that, and it happened very organically, because one of the things that I think Erin, and every author knows, is the only way to become a bestseller is for people to love your books and say, "Oh, I just read Out of the Clear Blue Sky. You've gotta read it."
Yeah.
That's it. Your publisher can take out an ad in the New York Times, but if people don't pass it around and say, I loved this book, this really touched me, or whatnot, then you're not going to be a success. So the fact that my books reached so many people and so many people related to them, it was just so wonderful. I thought it would be a quiet little career, and it's become a really big part of my life, and not something I do on the side anymore. When I started, my kids were tiny, and I'd be like, "Oh, it's nap time. I have an hour and a half to write." And now I'm a full-time author.
Love it. Well, I'm not surprised at all because just what you described was me calling my mom, get this book right now, texting my neighbor, oh my gosh, you have to read this book, and then finding people on TikTok and commiserating, saying, what did you think about that one scene? And they just would cackle and howl back and be like, wasn't that funny? This was just, if you love petty revenge,
Don't
Kristen.
we all?
I was telling my daughter all about this, and she She's 13. So she was like, that's hilarious. She's like, oh my, like, just so funny. And that's what you capture, I feel like, with all of your books, is that you want to tell someone about it. You want to say, oh my gosh, this scene. So well
Yeah,
done.
the book before that was a very I call it my weeper book,
This,
Pack Up the Moon.
yeah.
And it has its funny parts, but it's about a young widow in the first year of his widowhood. His wife dies of a terminal disease, but as she knows she's going to die, she writes him a letter for each month and gives him a job to do, a task that he's very uncomfortable doing, to get him out into the world, because he's on the spectrum and he works by himself, and she knows he's going to need her help. And so it's an absolute like 5 tissue read. But going back to the readers, it came out in the pandemic, and I was like, oh gosh, who's going to want to read a book about a woman who dies from a lung disease, right? But TikTok got a hold of it. The book talkers who love to cry
Yep.
were filming themselves crying and holding the book or throwing tissues at it, and people really responded to that. And it's a wonderful book if you want a nice cathartic sob, and it ends on a very uplifting, positive, hopeful note.
I love books like that, and I think a lot of people do too. I feel like when we can read books like that in troubled times, it makes us feel not as alone.
Yeah, yeah. I think so too. And in this book, Lauren gives her husband a path through grief. You'll never get over the loss of someone, but you learn to carry it
Yeah.
more gracefully. And I've experienced some devastating losses in my life. I mean, I think everybody has, or they will. And this was kind of a story about how you can do it, and you see a character doing it. I've gotten so many letters from widows and widowers about that book.
Oh, I think you froze for just a second. She'll come back.
It's really heartwarming. And on the flip side, I've gotten some letters of the clear blue sky. They're like, oh my gosh, you read my mind. Or empty nesters, because Lily's son goes away, and she talks about the changing role of her life now. She's not living with her son anymore, and her son is everything to her.
Yeah.
And
I
I
love
went through
your
that when
son
my
too.
kids.
You wrote him so well in there too.
Oh, thanks. I love Dylan. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's based on my son.
Oh, I could see my son in there too, and he's the same age, similar age. So I love that. I also wrote a book about a widow, and I think that's kind of a spoiler. Sorry, everyone.
Oops.
But
Erase that.
but and I wrote it. Well, I'll just say it because I don't know. People are this is your show, so who cares? I don't think they're buying my books. They're buying your books. But I wrote it. Her husband gets killed by a drunk driver, and
Oh
I
my
wrote
God.
it because I wrote that book during my grief because my brother was killed by a drunk driver during this time.
And my dad was killed by a drunk driver.
I'm so
It's horrible that we have this in common, but
sad. Yeah, it's a club no one wants to belong to.
right, it's the stupidest way to lose
Stupid.
someone. So preventable.
And so as I
But
wrote this last fall through the trial, I had to go to the trial. My mom somehow thought, hey, you should be the one that speaks at the trial and gives the victim impact statement. And I'm like, Mom, no, that's a horrible idea. Amazon Live and speaking at trials, two different kinds of public speaking.
right, right.
I don't want
Yeah.
to do this. And I don't want
Crummy.
to write what I have to say
Yeah.
because then I have to
Yeah.
feel what I have to say. So for
Right.
all that time I was you ever like I like my house is never cleaner when I'm supposed to be writing.
This
I'm like,
is
I
deadline.
got to clean that grout right now.
Right. I'm in the cellar dusting the pipes.
Right. And so I was like, I'm going to write this book because I don't want to write this victim impact statement. And
Yeah.
then, like a week before the trial, the sentencing, it wasn't even a trial, it was a sentencing. I knew she was going to walk. I knew the driver was going to walk. And I was just so numb. And I wrote the statement. And then I angrily contacted all the media within a 90-mile radius and invited them all to the sentencing. And they came.
Wow.
Like, I'm advocating for my brother right now. This is his last thing. And so I had, in this time that I was going through that very publicly, I had a lot of people reach out too and say, my dad was killed by a drunk driver. My mom was killed by a drunk driver. So many that I was horrified. And I was just like, this is not okay. This is all preventable. This is not heart disease. This is not cancer. This is not
Right.
an accident. This is an intentional decision that someone makes every day and kills so many people that is unexplainable. I mean, this is why would and most of them show no remorse, or they die in the accident and there's no redemption.
Yeah.
Absolutely no. And so my brother's killer got 21 days.
Ugh.
And she lives and works and does daily life now. She's a 57-year-old mother and a nurse,
Mm.
former nurse,
Wow.
and she just gets to live her life. So I wrote that book in that deep grief and channeled in like all this and just kind
Yeah.
of poured it out there. And I didn't know how it was going to be received. My editor was like, I don't know, man. This is going to be either really bad or really helpful. And what
Yeah.
happened was I received so many messages from widows and widowers that are like, I couldn't articulate my grief until I read how you articulated it on the page. And I'm not a widow, but
No, yeah.
you feel that
I
pain.
I had that too, like,
Yeah.
how did you know how I felt? And, I had a reader, a lovely reader who came to meet me when I was on book tour in Kansas City. Her name was Bridget, and she died, unfortunately, of COVID, and in the early days of COVID. And her husband wrote to me and said, "My wife really loved your work, and here's a picture of her meeting you. That was one of the highlights of her life." And
I'm gonna cry.
and she had given me a present, a little like little window hanging thing and a seahorse, and I brought it up to my house on Cape Cod and hung it there. And I took a picture of it and sent it to him.
Oh,
And he said, maybe I'll start reading your books too. And I said,
oh,
well, the one I just wrote is about a new widower. And he read it anyway. And he said, it really helped. And that's one of those unexpected gifts you get where you say, your book helped me during the worst time of my life.
yeah,
And I've had people write, like, I read your book when I was getting chemotherapy, or as my mother was dying. I read it out loud, and like we could at least smile over that.
yeah.
And or escape, just escape into a funny book that has nothing to do with what your life is happening, what's happening in your life right now. So that's the power of fiction. I'm very grateful to be a fiction writer, and I'm just so tickled still after all
Well,
these years.
I
People
think
buy
it
my book.
takes me back to what you said earlier about books have um, lined the way of mile markers in your life, or you said it way more eloquently than I did. But, I can remember reading like Too Good to Be True and all I ever wanted, back in the day, working as a busy, frazzled mom of three little kids at the time. Now I have four, but I remember working night shift, and my lunch breaks, I would read your books, and I remember thinking, "Oh, these are so good." So I can remember those books during that time, as you
Yeah.
remembered certain books in mile marker moments of your time, and just providing. Didn't it give you like goosebumps to think you provide solace in a time when people need it the most?
Yeah, I mean, and authors do that for me as well. I remember meeting Alice Hoffman, just unexpectedly. We're at a
Oh,
book party together, and I looked down at her name tag and burst into tears. You know? I'm like, "Oh, you don't understand that your books mean so much to me." And she must have thought like, "Oh God, I've got a crazy." Um, but yeah, it's really wonderful to be able to put that out in the world and think my books have had a positive impact on people, and I'm really proud of that.
you should
It's a
be.
great
You should be proud.
Thank you.
You have written over 22 books now, right?
Mhm.
And they have been mile markers in people's lives, and you have touched so many. I mean, you have, what did I see? 30, what was I read something. Oh, 4.5 million books worldwide, nine
Oh,
New York Times bestsellers in more than 24 languages. So not even just in the US, but all across the world. You've touched the line
yeah.
being a mile mark.
We're up over 5 million now, just wanted to say.
Congrats to you. Yeah, you're way over that. This must be old. She's blown that out of the water. So
It's, yeah, I mean, it's just surreal. I went on a European book tour, which was amazing. It was just, there was a book festival in Milan, and they asked if I could come, and then
you're
my
like, let
French
me check my
publisher said, "Well,
schedule.
she's just a train ride away," and then my German publisher said, "Well, if you're gonna have her, we're gonna have her." So it was amazing, and, I remember going and seeing my book in the front of a bookstore window outside the Duomo di Milano, and just thinking like, "Is this really me?" Like, I can't really fit my brain around it, that
I can think of like 5 TikToks you can make with that information right now. It's like that meme from Euphoria. Is this play about us? Is this about me? Is this me?
it's my kids told me I'm way too old for TikTok.
No, absolutely not. Because I think, well, first of all, book people are on TikTok because we're
But
introverts and we like to stay at home and we like to get, like, I have a joke, like, when they say Target tells you what to buy, Book Talk
yeah,
tells you what to read. so,
it does.
so
Yeah, it's a powerhouse.
it makes me spend way too much money on books, and I'm completely okay with that.
I know, but it's such a beautiful community. People who love books, they had a big impact on them, and they want to tell everybody. And I definitely I recommend books all the time. I post reviews on BookBub and Goodreads and my website and stuff. I'm always giving recommendations because I'm like, I loved this book. Someone has to read it so we can talk.
Yes, you're on TikTok too. I think I saw, right?
I am. Yeah, I am. I did get on it, but like the idea of doing videos featuring me is a little terrifying.
Right. I know. I feel the same. A lot of mine isn't my face, more like my hands. I'm like, I can do that. I can handle. Speaking of what you're reading right now, what are you reading right now?
I'm reading a book, oh shoot, it's a Colleen Oakley book, and it's called The Almost True Story of, I should just go grab it.
I'll just look it up. Yeah. Oh,
The Mostly True Story of Tanner and Louise. And I love Colleen. I think she's
I love that
such
cover.
yeah, I know, isn't it great?
Yeah.
And she's so creative and original, and I love that about her books. I'm a big fan, and we've gotten to meet once or twice, and she's really a lovely person. And but her books are a little magical, not in the sense of magical realism like Alice Hoffman or something, but just in the plot. There's they're really beautiful, and her writing is just speaks to me. And I have just started Farah Rochon's the latest in the Boyfriend Project series,
That's a good.
Dating Playbook, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and she's such a gifted writer. I call her like a modern day Jane Austen because that series is so playful and delightful and yet deep and meaningful. And she's got real insight into the heart and minds of people who are dating, just like Jane Austen. All her books are elaborate setups of people becoming couples.
She's really great. I had her on the show and I absolutely love her. Just
Yeah,
her so much. There's so many good books out right now. It's such a great time to be a reader.
I know. And you asked for my 10
Yeah.
favorite books. One of them is a story of a man who survives a grizzly bear mauling.
Oh, I saw that mauled. I was like, interesting. We're
Oh,
gonna have to talk about this.
that's like this weird side thing for me. I love to listen to stories of people surviving animal attacks. And I don't know. I do live in the woods. We have some black bear around. But and going swimming off Cape Cod, there's great white sharks, and I'm always thinking about my death by mauling or being some dinner to a shark or something like So I have this obsession with grizzly bear attacks, and I found a podcast that interviewed this guy, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to buy this book. So
Hey, you
what
never
I
know. We can put him in a book. You know, there's some way that can go in a book someday.
I did have a grizzly bear scene in My One and Only, where they go to Glacier National Park for a wedding, and I hadn't been to Glacier at that time, but I did a tremendous amount of research on it and looked at my friend's 2,000 pictures of Glacier, and that was one of my favorite scenes. It's a very funny grizzly bear scene, if you can.
Oh, I was telling my daughter about the shrimp scene, and she was like, "Why would somebody do that?" And I'm like, "Why wouldn't they?"
Yeah, one of Lily's little revenge tactics in Out of the Clear Blue Sky involves a shrimp in a
I have
bedroom.
heard of that happening to someone before. I must be on like this dark side of TikTok because I'm on the TikTok revenge side where I watch TikToks, and one lady put shrimp in the curtain rods.
Oh, I bet she follows me because she gave me that idea.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna really rethink who has access to my house.
Right. Don't make your children angry.
No, no. But I always like to ask, what are you watching right now?
We're watching House of the Dragon, the prequel to Game of Thrones, and at first I was like, "Meh, it's a cheap imitation," but it's got, all the creepy elements, the politics, the fighting for the throne, the incest. It's and it has the dragons. So I'm glad we're watching it. I'm glad we gave it more than one episode.
So I haven't
And
been watching that because I don't know why. I've been reading when my husband watches that at night, but
uh-huh.
my son, my grown-up son, watches it too. And I sent him to pick up my dog's medicine from the vet the other day, and I'm like, "Yeah, can you pick it up?" I'm like, "We're gonna have to start selling Molly's feet pics to pay for her Apoquel because it's not cheap." And it's a joke, like OnlyFans feet pics. Anyway, he looks at me and he goes, "Where did you get that from?" And I'm like, "I don't know, my head." And he goes, "Oh, that's a scene from House of Dragons." And I'm like, "I have not seen that, but that's kind
Yeah,
of funny."
yeah. No,
And
I heard so much buzz about it that I'm like, okay, okay, I'll try it again. So I can't wait for The Crown to drop, and
yeah,
yeah, big fan of that. That's just such a beautiful show to watch. The castle reproductions. I've heard it's the most expensive show ever produced, and because they have to build these sets and the clothes and everything, and I think they do such a good job. And then I watch. I love Project Runway and Glow Up, which is another competition show with makeup artists. And I don't know, it's just so different from what I do, and it's so beautifully creative and magical. It's a really fun show to watch.
I love that. What advice would you have for an aspiring author?
Um, I would say that don't don't listen to how hard it is to get published, because there's so many people talking about how miserable it is to be an author. And it has its moments of stress and anxiety, but nobody was born published. Everyone had to do what you're doing to try to get into the publishing world. And whatever way you do it, whether you're indie published or you do it yourself, or you go through a big publisher, you can do it. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens to the people who keep trying.
Yeah,
If you don't finish and you don't go through the process, you guarantee that you will never be published. So go for it.
I love that. That's wonderful advice. Well, where else can we find you and support you online? What's your TikTok handle?
Kristan Higgins. And I'm on Instagram at Kristan Higgins, Kristan Higgins Books on Facebook, and I have a group for my really devoted fans called Kristan Higgins Super Readers. So if you think you're one of them, then ask to come into the group, and we'll let you in.
Awesome. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today, you guys. I promise you I cannot tell you all the spoilers for this, but this is really funny.
It's funny, it's uplifting. I think people will relate to it a lot. So thanks for having me, Erin. It was really
So
fun.
to have you. Amazon, grab this today in either format that you like to listen to books, read books on your Kindle, or grab the paperback. The paperback's beautiful too. Either
Oh, and
format. Oh, go ahead.
just one note. There is I was recently hacked on Amazon, I guess. So if you order a book that has a full moon on it, it's not mine.
Yeah.
Make sure you have the cover with the lady sitting on the beach and the dog because this happens from time to time
Yeah.
on the
So make sure it's this one, guys. This is the only cover here in the US. So if you're on Amazon.com, the US version of Amazon, this one is the one that you're going to want to grab.
Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, stand by one moment. Amazon, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned because we have more authors coming, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.